Broken. Very broken. My big toe was just like at a right angle across all my other toes. The shin also split open. Like I blocked a kick and the shin split open. Once the shoulder was reconstructed, I was like, no, like I'm going to do this because I'm stubborn, if nothing else. And I was like, I'm going to do this.
Welcome to the podcast, Laura.
Thank you for having me.
And obviously the mugs you love.
Yeah, love the mugs. Forgot to put my sticker on, but it's fine.
I'm super excited that you're here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. I think what you're doing is amazing. So
thank
really
you.
Nice to be here.
So first question, off the bat, straight away, how's the toe?
Broken, very broken. Yeah, so when we've been to get it x-rayed, they've found one main break, which looks the nastiest on the x-ray, but that's not the problem. The problem are the 4 hairline fractures. So they go like up my toe, in a Z, down the side. So it's...
So what we might do is for the listeners and the viewers, is that we might can we get a clip of it and show it up?
Yeah.
Because I couldn't believe what I saw. So it might be worthwhile, Laura, just explaining who you are.
Okay, so my name is Laura Cannon, full title. I'm a personal trainer and nutritionist, and I'm also a professional Thai boxer. Recently ranked number 7 in the UK. Recently won the WMO British title. So, yeah, I think that's probably about it. Yeah, dog mum. Yeah.
So I'm assuming that the broken toe happened because you were sparring? Or was it a fight, or did you drop a wash machine on your toe? What happened?
This is just, I'd have cared, not cared, I would have worn it more as a badge of honour if it happened while I was fighting, because I'd be like, yeah, I'm hard as nails. But the reality was, me and Josh, my boyfriend, who's a fighter as well and a coach, we were going over some technique drills for the fight I was meant to be having in 5 weeks, working on defence. And I attempted to do what he was showing me. I was a little too close. So there's stuff to be learned there. I was a little too close and I kicked his knee. And in the moment, I was like, I said, one sec, I've really stubbed my toe. And then I was like, hang on, it's really it. And then I tried to move it and I was like, I took my shin pad off and my big toe was just like at a right angle across all my other toes.
Right.
And I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
And I knew that, obviously knew it was broke. Well, I didn't know whether it was dislocated, but I knew it wasn't right. And then we went to the hospital and I was like,
yeah.
No.
So the x-ray is magnificent. They are overrated though, toes.
Do you know what? Not your big one. I've broke other ones. You just take them to the little mate next to them and they get better. Not this guy. Like I can't walk without the silly boot.
I haven't had so you've got a boot on now, haven't you, for how long?
It's getting re-x-rayed in 3 weeks. I'm hoping the boot can come off, the trainer can go on, and I can punch a knee to get back to training as I know it. If it's not healing up, I don't think they're going to have to talk about surgery, but I'm just not even entertaining the notion right now.
Yeah, so when you're a sports person like you, the important thing to do is to try and do something. I'm assuming you've got to get your nutrition right. Obviously, you've got to get your recovery nutrition right now.
Yeah.
But obviously, you're not going to be fighting in 5 weeks. But in terms of getting yourself sorted, what kind of training are you able to do at the minute?
So I'm really lucky. So my strength and conditioning coach, he's based in Leeds. So primarily, we work with Nat online. He's Nat Robinson, if anyone wants to check him out, because he is amazing. So Nat's kind of took the reins for me at the moment because I am out of running, I am out of pad work, sparring, anything kind of Thai boxing related, which makes me really sad. Nad, that's not his name.
Nad.
Nad.
No, literally.
Nat has took the reins. So he's given me kind of conditioning sessions where I'm sat down, which is still difficult. And then we're doing whatever strength and conditioning we can do at this point because I can't really weight bear through it. And as I said to you when I came in, the boot's making me wonky. Yeah. So even though I can stand up in the boot, I'm all off balance. Yeah. So
you getting any hip pain at the minute with that?
Knee and ankle. I think because I'm locked into a position. And I'm like, but I'm doing what I can do training wise. I'm hopeful I'll get back as soon as possible. I am known for rushing back into things, so
okay.
I'll probably do that
Just
again.
Just got to take it easy. You got to get your toe mended, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I broke my leg. I did my tib and fib in, and it took 7 months in the end.
Yeah.
To get it right.
I fractured my shin last year, and at the time I didn't know that I'd done it. It was a hairline fracture up the front of my shin, and the shin also split open. Like, I blocked a kick and the shin split open. But I was going on holiday the next day. I'd just done a fight camp. I'd had a fight. And the paramedic said to me, like, you need to get this looked at. And I was like, I'm probably not going to do that because I go away tomorrow.
Yeah.
So they glued it back together, kind of just shook the head at me and was like, well, we tried to tell her what to do. So I went on holiday and everything. I hobbled around Rome, just eating pasta and ice cream. And when I got back, the shin was really not okay. So I was like, so I just put like a support over it and just carried on training. I had 3 fights in the process of that. I moved to a new club. I had 3 fights at my new club. And after the 3rd fight, my coach was like, that shin hasn't been right since you came here. You haven't thrown a right kick. We've trained for 3 fights. We've had 3 fights. I kicked in the fight because of adrenaline, but each fight it was getting worse. And he said to me, would you please go and have it looked at? And I was like, oh, no, I have. And he was like, no, you haven't. Go and have it looked at. And I did. And they were like, this is really strange. They were like, it's a hairline fracture in your shin, but it looks like it's healing. And I thought, yes, because I did it 8 months ago.
Wow.
And I was like, oh. So, like, that was, yeah, just another example of I'm not that good at looking after myself, but because I really want to train and fight all the time. So I do just try and push through things, which probably isn't something you should try at home, but it is what it is.
The docs explained to me that when the bone grows back, it's actually stronger than it was before.
Yeah, so it's the same with like cuts. When fighters who fight A-class get cut, it's generally not the cut will heal itself super strong. It's the tissue around it that's then susceptible because it's stretched and stuff. I don't know about bones. I mean, I've had no issues with the shin.
Yeah.
It feels good as new now. Now it's just the toe.
Yeah, it's just your toe now, isn't it?
And just a walking disaster.
So that was about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Wasn't it, when you did that?
Yeah. It feels like a lifetime ago. Like, I'm not good out of routine.
Okay.
In anything. Like, I have my ducks in a row all of the time. I have lists and I tick things off and tick it off twice and highlight it. And so when things are a little bit out of whack for me in one part of my life, I'm just a bit like, So it's been a tricky 2 weeks because life as I know it involves a lot of training and I can still train every day, but it's just not the training I'm used to.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just want to go back.
See, the thing is that one of the issues about being self-employed, i.e., that the thread of this podcast is all about those people giving it a go, small businesses and all those things, is that if you're on your own as a business, there's no sickness time off or anything like that.
No. And I think I'm lucky in the respect of we launched Ignite, which is totally remote and online, in June. So as luck would kind of have it or not have it, at least I had Ignite to fall back on this time round. But I've been injured in the past, and as much as everyone goes, we should have things in place when you're self-employed for rainy days, generally people don't. Well, and I didn't. Yeah. And there is that rush back to work because, especially in what I do on the gym floor, you don't want your clients to go elsewhere. And there is a rush to kind of get back to earn money. No one pays your sick pay, no one pays your holiday pay. So, yeah, it's tricky. Being self-employed is tricky. I mean, I took a week off just because I couldn't drive for this injury. And I always panic about client retention and things like that. And I've had the same girls for like 7 years. They're not going anywhere. They like training with me and I love that. But I still panic. I'm like, what if this time they leave? It's not nice.
It's hard, isn't it? Because obviously anyone who's setting up a business, you've always got to think about the worst case. And especially, you don't know what's coming around the corner. You can get some insurances to help cover, but it's a bit of a ball ache, that is, because it's about, well, what type of injury have you got exactly, and how did you oh no, that's not covered here. But there's great advice people could probably get about at least getting some sort of basic cover.
Probably I could probably
around
from that, or just launch a second branch of my business that I can do while injured. The plan was to have something I could do anywhere in the world, so that when I got offered fights, I could take a little bit of time off physical work and then also travel if I need to. It wasn't meant to be a safety net for being injured, but you know what? It's actually doubled up.
It is what it is.
So it is what it is. Yeah.
So there was what's Ignite?
So Ignite is performance nutrition. So obviously it's designed for athletes primarily at the moment because of the circle I'm in. Everyone I work with is a fighter. It's not just for fighters. I mean, it's anyone who engages in sport. I think generally you'll get people...
Performance-based sport, I guess.
Yeah.
Like human-powered type sports.
Yeah. And I think, you know, if you participate in any sport, obviously you need to be fueled properly. But because of the circuits which I'm in already, I get people who are trying to make weight. So it's about how you can fuel them best throughout that camp, getting them into like a safe parameter to cut water if they need to, keeping them fueled throughout the camp, and then ultimately getting them on weight. So yeah, I will work with anyone in any sport, and I would love the opportunity to kind of work with people outside of Thai boxing for now while it's in its infancy. And I guess people look at who I'm already working with, and word of mouth, my fighters are just going to talk to other fighters and I'm going to get more fighters. But that's where I'm most comfortable. I'd like the opportunity to work with people in other sports. It would help me grow and learn. But for now, it's just fighters.
Yeah, but
I love that.
I'm sure that that'll happen because what you're talking about here is performance sports, right? Where there's an endurance required.
Yeah.
It's not just about how hard you punch somebody. You've got to be able to last X amount of rounds at full capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think what can kind of get lost in sports where you need to make weight is the performance leading up to that. It's all good and well getting an athlete on weight, but it's not good and well if for 6, 8, 10 weeks you've had them on, you know, really low calories where they can't perform to their optimum. The more you take from a fighter, the less chance you've got of getting them back to their full potential for fight day. Do you know what I mean? So if I can keep a fighter fueled, obviously you know Dan, he's been on the Local Heroes podcast. We have to get Dan on weight, and it's very strict because it's WBC world title. There's no wiggle room. We can't make errors. They check the weight 4 times on the lead up. There can be no errors, but we can't have Dan on really low calories throughout that camp. How is he going to win a world title if he's been done in for 8 weeks?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
The WBC, I think, introduced that to try and stop that sort of mass weight cut right at the very end, and then so that they're trying to take the step which is if we can see a gradual decrease in weight. Let's say you're going from 93 kilograms down to 76 kilograms or something. You'd be able to see it in a phased space of time. That's the theory behind it. The problem with that is, guess what? In order to be able to make the 80, I've got to get from 90 to 80. I've got to get from 80 to 78 and so forth. I'm going to be sitting in the bath still, aren't I?
It doesn't work. Like, I understand what they're trying to do.
I'm going to be short of electrolytes.
Yeah.
Whatever else.
I understand what they're trying to do. And on paper, it's a lovely idea. In practice, do I think it works? No. Do I know female and male fighters who cut weight at the 10%, 5%, 3%, and then for weigh-in day? Absolutely. And you know, that still poses problems. I would argue it causes bigger problems because Dan's doing great for his first weight check. It's unlikely we're going to have to cut any water. Amazing. But you know Dan, and he's a big guy for the weight.
Yeah.
So the likelihood is for the other weight checks, are we going to have to manipulate water? More than likely. Are we going to have to do the final weigh-in? More than likely. And so every time we take the body through that, it's how can I restore what we've lost in that process, the water, the electrolytes, and get him back to full capacity for that performance element of things. He's got to keep training. The first weight check's 4 weeks out when we're close to fight day. And I think when it's monitored closely, it's okay. Are there people out there who are kind of doing it on a whim and not monitoring it so closely? Yeah. And will that impact performance? Absolutely. And so on paper it works. Do I think they've created a foolproof system for weight cutting? Absolutely not. Actually, they've made it worse.
The problem is, why is it worse?
Because
I've got things. Sorry about that. Bit of Tom Jones.
I think if you're going to cut water 4 times, and like I say, it's not unheard of, you're doing essentially 4 fight camps worth of water cutting.
Okay.
For one.
Yeah.
And like I say, it's how you come out of them. Now, if you come out of them well with guidance, it's all right. But it's a what if you don't. We're depleting the body several times in a short time frame. Whereas if it was a different belt or a different fight, we generally do 1 water cut.
Okay.
And that'll be it.
Yeah. So I can think of like a ton of sports already where you could add value. I mean, I'm thinking endurance cycling, even cycling, for example, would be perfect for the type of nutrition performance monitoring that you do.
Oh, definitely, because there's obviously lots of kinds of subcategories.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you've got your endurance sports like marathon running, cycling and things like that. Then you
Rowing.
have, or even in combat sports, some of them are same day weigh-in. So amateur boxing, some fights out in Thailand, they'll do same day weigh-in. You weigh in early morning, you compete in the afternoon. That changes the dynamic of everything. Or like your classic MMA and Thai and like more professional boxing where you're weighing the day before. So there's so many things out there. Or even High Rocks is very popular now. Obviously, very big on endurance, like for what they have to do to compete. So I'm interested to see where it goes. I am hoping, like I say, to kind of spread my wings
Absolutely.
past just Thai boxing and MMA, and
Yeah. Well, there's a science, but there's obviously a science behind it. But you're very passionate about it. That's very clear.
Yeah, I think anything that when I started personal training, I just wanted to do something that I loved, which helped other people. And I always thought to myself, I would measure success on how much I can help others, because I think success is subjective, isn't it? And it's what it means to you. And I think if I can help people and kind of leave them better than I found them, educate them, then that's success to me. And this is just another branch of that.
Yeah.
Like if a fighter does one fight camp with me and learns enough to go and have 10, 20 good fights because of what I taught them in one, then I'm like, job done. That makes me really happy. If they stay with me for the 10, 20 fights. Happy days.
Yeah, happy days indeed. So you've got, there's a few little wings of Laura, isn't there then, in that case?
Yeah.
So you've got the fact that you're concentrating on a sport yourself. So you've got to get yourself, keep the discipline in terms of getting to the gym. You've got to be making sure your nutrition's right. You've got to be getting the supplementation that you need. So you've got that thing in itself in one. You're running your business, which is personal training.
Yeah.
So you're helping God knows how many people just doing that. That's not just about fighting either, by the way. So what I was seeing was you're helping all sorts of people, all different backgrounds. It's not just about being a fighter in your personal training space.
No, so with the personal training, obviously I started that 7 years ago. I did my degree in university, and for me, the high school that I went to really pushed for university, and I like learning, and so they were pushing for me to go to university because it was like, you've got good grades, you should go. It would be a waste if you didn't go. So I went. I come out to university and got a 9 to 5 working in risk analysis, and I absolutely hated it. It was the worst 6 months. I couldn't think of anything. It was so boring. And so to keep learning, because I like learning, I did my personal training qualification because I enjoyed training. And then decided, after I got the personal training to a certain point, I had a couple of clients in the evenings. I quit my job and I went travelling for a little while. And I was like, when I come back, I have to make this work because I've got nothing else right now. But I think nothing spurs you on quite like that, because I was like, I've got to make this work. And I did, and I come back, and that was 7 years ago. And I love what I do. But the idea, I was initially under the brand of Mindful Muscle. And my idea was, it was never about getting people to be really skinny and transforming them and being like a fat loss coach or anything like that. It was just about providing a safe training space for people of any age, any body type, any ability to come and just enjoy and learn. And with that now, I think my youngest client is 10 and my oldest client's 84.
Oh, there you go. So massive spectrum.
So, yeah. And
so have you got a facility then where people come to train?
Yeah, so that's in Liverpool, because I've recently just kind of moved more these ways, but that's in Liverpool, and I do that 3 days a week in person. Then I have people who train with me online for strength and conditioning, and then obviously I have Ignite.
Yeah. How does online training work? I've never quite understood it. It's funny because you're relying on that individual to take ownership.
Yeah.
And then obviously you're able to measure their progress online, as it were. But how easy is that generally to do?
I don't think it works for everyone. I think a lot of people have a personal trainer for the accountability element of things that I've booked in with Laura. and almost I won't let Laura down. And I know it should be about not letting yourself down, but it's like I've booked in, I don't want to lose me money, I'll go. And that kind of keeps them going. Online, like you say, I could plan you online, you might not do any of them. And it's difficult to monitor that. I do mine through an app where everything is uploaded and it's be personal to you, and whatever you're trying to achieve, I can see when you've done it. Well, done it, because you can just click that you've done it. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It takes a certain type of motivation within an individual. So you'd be looking at people who would go to the gym frequently, but maybe just need guidance. Like I had my online girls, a couple of them are like, I do go to the gym 3 times a week, but I'm just going on the treadmill. And I'm like, okay, let's introduce S&C into this, and this is what it will look like. Yeah. But it's not for everyone. It's definitely not for everyone. There are a lot of people.
There is, I think the point of it is, though, it allows you accessibility to a professional coach of which they might not necessarily have had access to.
Yeah.
And then you can sort of, I'm assuming this is the case, is where you would say, well, I can now deal with 12, 15 people.
Yeah.
Instead of 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And out of those 2 or 3, get yourself physically to the gym and I need to see you.
Yeah, that's it. And I think a lot of my online clients will see me in person once a week. And then they then add another 1 or 2 sessions online. And that kind of hybrid way of doing it works really well. So they're not having to lay out the cost of seeing me 3 times a week, because online's obviously much cheaper, because like you say, I can type out a plan and reply to someone much quicker than I can within an hour time slot. Yeah. So it doesn't work for everyone. It does work for some of my clients. It also means that in the past, when I've gone out to Thailand, everyone goes online, and I'm lucky that the gym are working. Let my clients keep using the space when I'm not there. So it keeps me in touch with them, so that I'm not going away for a month and they're not doing anything for a month. Yeah. And then, you know, we're at square one when I get back.
Yeah. So Thai boxing became your passion, let's say. When did you decide to go for a belt? Because there's a big difference in there between finding a sport, like obviously you're into physical fitness anyway.
Yeah.
But getting yourself to going for a belt, that's quite an achievement, and it's a massive. Don't get me wrong, I've seen clips of the fight. It was mental, but I tell you what, it was brilliant. So, what was the flip which got you into going for a belt?
So, pardon me. I've actually been in Thai boxing since I was 4. My dad's a Thai boxing coach. That's how I ended up in the sport. I competed very briefly as a junior, really briefly. I think I stopped when I was 10. And then never really left the sport, kind of like come in and out of it, training a little bit, not training, in and out. And then when COVID came, I was like, oh, I don't want to get, say, into my 40s, 50s and be that, like, auntie at the dinner table who goes, oh, when I was young, I could have, because I'm like, well, if you could have, why didn't you? Yeah. Otherwise, like, I don't want to hear the story. So COVID came, I was like, no, when the gyms reopen, I'm going to give it a go. I'll have one fight if I don't like it. So what? And that's what I did. I had one fight when everything reopened. In fact, everything hadn't reopened. They were limiting the number of people that could go in. I had one fight. I suffered terrible injury in it.
What happened?
I punched, and as I did, my shoulder dislocated, which we then found out at a later date. It tore the cartilage, so I had to have reconstruction surgery.
Wow.
So I'd had the one fight that happened. Then I had to have surgery. There was just a lot. It was a bit of a mad year in every capacity, a lot of change. And once the shoulder was reconstructed, I was like, no, like, I'm going to do this, because I'm stubborn, if nothing else. And I was like, I'm going to do this.
Well, so, what's interesting about that is that not everybody has that mentality. Once you get an injury, they go, I can't possibly go and do that again, or they don't do it the same rigor.
Yeah.
So you must. What was the thing that got you through that to say, no, I'm still going to go and do it anyway?
I genuinely think it is how stubborn I am. I think when life kind of throws curveballs at me, where some people might give up, I'm like, no, like, you won't win. Like, whatever life's thrown at me, I'm like, this will not win. I'll have it my way. So after the surgery, I did some really intense private physio with a guy who was really, really good. And he had said that my return to sport could be May last year. So before that, I went out to Thailand for a month, trained. I figured if it didn't come out in Thailand when I was training for like 6 hours a day, I could conclude that the surgery had worked. Again, this is not medical advice. So I come back from Thailand, and then it's been a whirlwind since then. I fought 7 times in 12 months.
Wow.
And I just said to my coach, like, don't, when it comes to fighting, just say yes. The time frame doesn't matter. I'll make the weight. It doesn't matter who it is. Just yes.
Yeah. Do you know what? Conor McGregor had the same approach, you know. When Dana White always talks about Conor McGregor for UFC, what he did for UFC was unbelievable. But he was always saying he had the same attitude as you, funnily enough, which was, I don't mind who it is. Like Dana would give him a call and say, listen, sorry, can you do a fight in 4 weeks' time? Who is it? Oh, it's this guy. Yeah, fine. And he just did it. There's this like persona of Conor McGregor where you think is just not got that mentality, but he did.
Yeah.
He didn't mind. He didn't cause a fuss. He would just go and do the fight. And so that's the right attitude to have if you're going to be a winner, is to say, listen, I can't worry about who it is you're putting in front of me.
No.
I need to fight anyway.
You're either going to be the best Thai boxer on the day, or you're not.
You're being consistent. You're being consistent because you're obviously keeping yourself strong and fit and healthy.
Yeah. And I think we just hit everything head on. I give away experience in pretty much all of the fights. I took 1 loss and 1 draw, won the rest.
What's the weight that you fight at?
So I fight anything between 56 and 58 kilo. I always say I do 55 for special occasions, but thankfully no special occasions have presented themselves yet.
So what's the name of the weight of that? Is it featherweight or lightweight or something?
Featherweight. I think the belt was featherweight. Yeah, that was 56 kilo.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was just a whirlwind, and took, you know, anything that came my way. I'd been successful in all my fights and taken a draw, and then in November last year, Josh actually called me and said, oh, I've had a call off a promoter that we both know. And I was like, oh, yeah. And he was like, do you want to fight in Sweden in 3 weeks? So I was like, oh, I'll run it past my coach, who's actually friends with Josh. I said, run it past Glyn. And he was like, oh, it's A-class. So obviously that's like full Thai rules, elbows, not something you do after so little fights. But I was like, yeah, okay. I didn't ask who she was. I was just like, no. My coach watched it and was like, reckon we can give this a good go? And I was like, fine. I'm always fight fit anyway. I don't believe fighters should be in fight camps. If you want to be a fighter, you should be ready to take any opportunity as and when. There's no point fighting and dieting and getting fit and then going AWOL. Like, that's not a fighter in my opinion. Okay. And I feel strongly about that.
That's really interesting.
You do it. You live it. Or one day you're going to share the ring with someone who lives it when you don't. And yeah. And that's like, you know, probably not going to be fun times for you. So we took the fight in Sweden. It was 3 rounds. I didn't know anything about the girl. When I got in the ring, they read out her accolades, and I was stood like this for what felt like 10 minutes. And I was like, oh my God, there's nothing she hasn't done. I got dropped in the first round. Don't even remember what happened. When I watched it back, it was a spinning back fist, and it like hit me in the neck and gave me a flash knockdown. I do think in the UK, they wouldn't give me a count for it because I got straight back up. It was a flash knockdown. I wasn't hurt. I think it was just because of where it hit me.
Yeah.
And then round 2, I felt like I come into it a little bit. And round 3, I probably finished strongest. But it's 3 rounds. You don't have time to start slow. And I'd never fought 3 rounds before. I'd never fought full time rules. And I didn't win the fight. I didn't win it fair and square. It wasn't because we were the away fighter. I just lost. But no risk, no reward. And I think I kind of proved by doing that. They were like, oh, she can mix it at a higher level, even with the lesser experience. And I didn't fight them from the November to the February. In February, I took my only fight with someone of a similar experience, stopped her in 1 minute and 10 seconds of the first round, and then went on for the belt in June.
Wow.
So it's just been, yeah.
So what was the belt?
The WMO British title.
Which WMO is?
The World Muay Thai Organisation.
Okay, cool.
It's a fancy belt. It's very
it's
it's really
well,
nice
proper nice, isn't it? Yeah. So you get in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
nerves. You're just excited. Is there like an adrenaline of excitement or what?
I always say, everyone's different, obviously, but I always say for me, on the lead up to the fight, I'm really excited. Then in the back, like, they'll rub you down with Thai oil and Vaseline just to make you a bit slippy. And whenever I'm having that done, you lie on the floor, and every time I'm lying on the floor, I think, why am I doing this? Like, what am I doing? And I have that moment, and I always say, if someone said to me, do you want to get off? I'd be like, yeah, yes, I want to go home. But that's the only point I feel nervous. I always pick a walkout song that I love. And as soon as my walkout music comes on, I'm like, well, there's no turning back now, is there?
We've got to go.
You've got to go. What are you going to do? Run away? Like, no. And I always have a little bit of a dance, and I'm like, yeah. And then I go out and fight. I don't feel nervous when I'm in the ring. What's going to happen is going to happen in there. And I know I work really hard. Like I said, I do everything to the letter. And if I don't win, it's just because I'm not the best Thai boxer on the day. You don't keep a clean sheet in Thai boxing. The best haven't managed to do it. It's, boxers can rack up like an impressive 20-0 record. It's pretty unheard of in Thai boxing. It's not totally unheard of, but I think you just be open to the chance of, being beat can happen. So I do everything in my power to make sure it doesn't. But nerves aren't something that I struggle with, which is weird because in life, for really small things, I'm an anxious mess.
Right.
But when I get in the ring, I'm like, yeah. So it's strange how it manifests itself, but I don't really struggle with nerves.
Right. And how did you deal with all the things which surround it, like the crowd and even like with the media? You don't get any training for that, do you? So how do you cope with all of that?
The crowd's a weird one because when I'm walking out, obviously I can hear the crowd. When I get in the ring, I can just hear my coach. It's strange. Like, you almost tune out a little bit, because walking out to my last fight, the crowd was so loud. I was like, oh my God. Like, there was a lot of people there and it was amazing. And then when I got in the ring, I just couldn't hear them.
Right.
It's strange. I don't know whether everyone's like that, but I just kind of, I have to be able to listen to my corner. So I think I'm just listening for that.
I think Matt and Dan said something similar, actually, where they said it's quite funny, really. You sort of, you kind of block it out, and your job is to hear what the coach is saying.
Yeah.
Do what the coach says.
Or occasionally you hear your opponent's corner.
Yeah.
If you're over that side of the ring. And yeah, but that's okay, because I can hear what they're shouting for, so I'm like, I'll defend that.
Wow. So why you are fighting, you have your business. How difficult was that to set up? Was it reasonably straightforward in terms of vision, money, get it done? So how did you start that?
So I wouldn't say it was straightforward. I did it at a time where I was training for the British title. We were renovating a house. Josh was promoting a show. I was still working full time on the gym floor. But I just work well under pressure. And I'd had a vision for it. I knew where I wanted to go with it. And it was like, if not now, then when? And I say that about everything in life. Like, you'll meet people who go, oh, I'll do it when. And they wait for the circumstances of life to be right. And it's never going to be. Like, there's never going to be a right time to do anything. So I'm like, if not now, then when? So that was kind of the thought process. And like I say, I'm lucky to be involved in the circles that I'm in. So picking up clients wasn't difficult. In the Ignite's only been live for 8 weeks. In that time, there's been a couple of moments where I've gone to Josh, I've bitten off more than I can chew, because it's growing really fast, but I've got to be grateful for that. I don't think I want to say that there was some big inspirational grand plan, and there really wasn't. It was something that I was doing on the side for teammates for free, and then people from other gyms were like, can I pay you to do this? And I was like, well, I'm doing it free for them, so I can't charge you. And I was like, right, you need to have a sit down, because this is not smart business.
Yeah.
And so I sat down, kind of planned it out, kind of looked at the market, seen what people were charging, and went from there. But there really wasn't a grand plan with it. I think now it's been going for a little while. I know where I want to take it, but there wasn't a big grand plan.
Isn't it funny though that these businesses, and mine's included, was you just have this feeling,
Yeah.
don't you? I kind of feel that this is where I want to go, and you can plan everything to death, but it might not necessarily work out that way.
No. I think, I don't know, like I say, I'll just give things a go, and I'm like, if they don't work, they don't work. But if I'm going to do something, one, if I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And whatever I choose to do gets my full heart, whether that is business, training, friendships, relationships. I always say that, like, anything I'm in for, it's with me full heart, and I'll give it my best go. And then generally things are successful when you do them like that, because you're giving it your all, it's your passion. If I feel like half-hearted about something, I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
Because there's no point. I know it make it work unless it sets me soul on fire. I'm just like, no.
Where does the drive come from?
I think the work ethic comes from my dad. Like, I'm a proper daddy's girl. But I've grown up watching my dad run a business and run a Thai boxing gym. And he works so hard. Like, I've had a very nice life. Like, I've wanted for nothing. And he always just wanted to give us a little bit more than he had. And he had a nice life. And so now I look and I'm like, well, if I have children in the future, I want to give them a little bit of a nicer life than what I've had. And that would take some topping. And he's got a solid work ethic, which comes from my nan and granddad. And I actually remember ringing him one day. And my dad doesn't complain about work. Like, he's always just got on with it. And he works silly hours. And there was like, this is just what he does. He's a hard worker. And I remember ringing him when I'd started PTing, and he said, you sound really happy. And I was like, Dad, when my alarm goes off in the morning, I just, like, can't wait to get to work. And he said to me, I've never once felt like that a day in my work and life. And it broke my heart a little bit, because I was like, we've never been without. And he's dragged himself onto building sites my whole life, and then straight to the gym and stuff like that. And I thought, well, I'm lucky enough to do something I love. He's my motivation for everything. Like, very strong-minded, very hard-working. And I always think, one, if I make him proud, then again, it's subjective, and that's success to me. If I'm happy and he's proud, then
happy days.
Then happy days. Like, I don't want any more than that.
I'm sure he is proud.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's my biggest fan. But that's nice. And I realise I'm lucky to have that, but it definitely comes from him. All of it.
So what did young Laura look like then? So way before PT, way before everything else, you obviously went to school like everybody else.
Yeah.
Good at sports?
Yeah, I've always been sporty. When I was in primary school, I used to compete in, like, indoor athletics, football. Then in high school, I played netball, rounders, lacrosse. Like, I've always been very sporty. It's just fun. You know, people say, I don't really like sport. I'm like, I just don't get it. I'm like, it makes you feel good. I'm competitive, really competitive. So I think sport's always just been in me. But again, I think that does come from my dad, which came from my granddad. We've always just been a sporty family.
Yeah, but if you had if you had a fabric of health and well-being, let's say, within the family anyway, you're bound to pick that up.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be encouraged with you, isn't it?
Yeah.
But also, though, that little bit of a spark, which your dad and your granddad probably had.
Yeah.
That's genetic, right? You're going to have that anyway.
But I think it definitely came from them. I mean, the sports have changed over the years. I think my granddad did judo. I think it was judo. I don't think it was judo too. I don't know. But he did that, and then my dad started in that. My dad played football and then went to Thai boxing. But I think what's quite interesting is I'm one of 4 kids, and my dad has never forced Thai boxing on any of us. Like, so I've got 3 brothers, and my dad was always like, Thai boxing's my thing. I want you to have a thing. Like, you need to have a hobby. But if it's not Thai boxing, it's not Thai boxing. He used to say to the boys, if you want to go and be ballet dancers, that's fine. I just want you to be passionate about something and stay active and fit. I chose Thai boxing because I just wanted to mirror everything he did. Like, growing up, I idolised him. So I was like, I'll just do that with you, Dad. And to be fair, like, the boys have only picked it up in the recent years, and he was fine with that. So I think not having the pushy parent element always allowed me to kind of enjoy Thai boxing for what it was. And like I say, I was in and out of it until I was like 25, really. So,
Well, Matt and Dan were saying that they, I think, started off at football, and then the football team wound its neck in or something, and then the dad tried to take him to go swimming, and they friggin' hated it. I just don't want to do it. Some of the chlorine can't stand it. But they had this sort of...
I'm just imagining Dan in a little swimming cap. No.
No, don't. Yeah, his Speedo's on. But they said, though, but the fighting thing just seemed to be something which switched them on. Now, but what they also said was very similar to you, which was, listen, if our kids don't want to do it, they're going to learn how to defend themselves.
Yeah.
But they don't have to do it. They can. They might find a sport that they genuinely love, and they'll want to do that. Go do it. We're not going to force you down a particular route, because then because if you have a passion for something, you're more than likely going to be successful at it. Won't define what success is, but the point is that find the thing that you enjoy. Don't let anybody else sort of take it away.
It will work in the short term, and I say this like little quote all of the time, and it's true in most aspects of life. If you apply pressure to someone, they will do what you want them to do in the short term. Once you release that pressure, you'll see what they'd rather do. And if parents push and push and push kids, unfortunately there comes a day where you don't have that push on them anymore because they're an adult, and they'll just go and do what they want to do anyway.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying, oh, let kids do what they want. Not at all. And it's easy for me to say as I don't have any kids. But I do think let them explore what's right for them.
Yeah, what are they interested in?
Yeah.
Provide the structure, of course.
Yeah.
But, and give it a go. If it doesn't work, give that a go.
Yeah.
And you'll find it eventually.
I actually think my little brothers at one point, they'll kill me for saying this on a podcast.
Good one.
It was when they were young, but like obviously dad's from a fighting background. I've always enjoyed Thai boxing, and they went through a phase of street dancing.
Okay.
And my dad was like, do you know what? Whatever makes you happy. I wanted the structure of a healthy hobby. And if it's street dancing, and they did a couple of little shows where they wore little caps.
Oh, yeah.
They were like this. Yeah. And I'd like to remind them on this podcast that happens, and I've got pictures.
I wonder if there is a picture that we can share. I think we should. Sam, I think we'll click a little picture.
2 out of the 3 of them fight now, so it'll be a marginally less impressive picture than them fighting.
Yeah. Well, there's a friend of mine, I won't mention his name, is an ex-Royal Marine, decorated Royal Marine. Blame me if there's something on YouTube with him on top of the pops with some little, like, dancing away with these little glow sticks. I'm like, that's so far apart.
Yeah. No, you'll not find anything of me dancing. Dancing is not my forte.
Right.
No.
So you were, you got yourself through school, but what I did notice, so you got a degree in psychology.
Yeah.
How did that happen? So it's an amazing subject, by the way. Fascinating.
Yeah. So I think what Laura looks like as a child was like maybe a bit of a can of worms question. It wasn't, I was always very academic, always very sporty. So for parents and teachers, like, I was a dream. Like, I was a little nerdy kid. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But when it came to figuring out what I wanted to do, the human mind's always interested me. Like I said before, like, I think mental fortitude and resilience is what takes people to great places. I don't necessarily think it's like luck or anything like that. I do think you can program a lot of your life in your mind. It's your perception of the world. It's how you approach things. And when I was younger, well, up until my early 20s, I had been through like little bits of therapy and counselling myself, just to deal with various things. And it fascinated me how you can unpick things in your mind and fix them. And I wanted to know why. Like, why is that? Do you know what I mean? What goes on in there? What makes you the way you are? What makes me the way I am? What makes us different? What factors influence that? So that was why I chose psychology. It wasn't my initial choice, the school I went to. Like I said before, like it was kind of very exam focused. Like, you kind of did your exams. It was a really good school, but it was you did your exams, you went to uni. And I did 1 year of law because school were like, well, you got really good grades. And I was like, I don't want to do that. But anyway, I did a year of law and I was like, it's just not for me. the workload was fine, the grades were good. I was like, it just doesn't, that whole set me soul on fire. And I was like, so this is going to be pointless because I'll do it, but not to my, pardon me, to my like full capacity. So I dropped out after a year and, I dropped out after a year and went and did psychology, and I really loved it. First year was kind of dictated to us in terms of modules. Then there was a lot of choice in second year, even more in third for research. And in my third year for my dissertation, I actually studied how parental influence affects eating behaviour in later life. So it looked into eating disorders and why they might manifest and where they're kind of born from and what can kind of trigger it and things like that. So
that's fascinating. So,
yeah.
So give us an example. So would it be? Sorry, I've said give us an example that I just said, but
No, you're okay.
Is it like not even necessarily a negative trigger, but it could be something like comfort. Like on a Friday, family would get together. You may be with a single parent or the parents are still together. Friday was always about watching a film, blasting off, and we might eat this.
Yeah.
Is that the kind of thing? So it's not always a negative issue, but is that the kind of stuff you're talking about?
It's not even, so like, they're obviously quite like obvious examples. Another obvious example would be if you had a parent with an unhealthy relationship with food, you would mirror that. They're quite obvious examples. What I actually found was it can be deeper than that. So even down to parents being over strict when it comes to, you know, like snacking and sweets and things like that. If you drill into a child from a young age that they're like bad, it can go one or two ways in adulthood. You can either get like your binge eater who's like rebelling and I'll do what I want because it was restricted from them for so long, or they can be an adult who kind of grows up with those restrictive beliefs around food. And so things that are designed to protect you, your parents do to protect you when you're younger, like no more sweet treats, either fall out, can actually like play a greater role in like adult life. So it was, I found things out that I didn't necessarily think that I'd come across as well. It was definitely really interesting. But I think if I had my time again, psychology isn't necessarily the degree that I'd do, but I got the freedom in the last year to explore like the psychology and nutrition kind of side of things.
Thing is that listen, we can always reflect back, and I've talked about the sliding doors effect on a number of podcasts now, and there's something to it. But if you think about it, the degree that you chose to do, you got an insight into the psyche of maybe the way the chemical works in the brain, certain triggers, whatever else happens. You said the background of people can affect the way you conduct yourself going forward. Unconsciously, you have no clue that that's what's going on. That, though, has probably still helped you today. If you hadn't done that degree, perhaps you don't know, do you? You might have gone down a slightly different path.
Oh, yeah.
With that degree you've got now, provides a great foundation for when you're helping other people and you go, I recognize this. I know what this behavior is about. Definitely.
I think it's placed me better in terms of being on the gym floor and with Ignite to recognise potentially like abnormal patterns of behaviour, but not just recognise them, understand maybe why they occur, and you can help people then. Do you know what I mean in terms of whether it's diet or mindset? And I do think in that respect, it's definitely helped in my career. I wouldn't say it was like a totally pointless degree. It absolutely wasn't. Like you say, like it's so easy to look back and go, oh, I've done that differently. But in the same breath, with uni, with life, if I could go back and do any of it again, I probably wouldn't, because you wouldn't be here, would you?
But you wouldn't be here
One
now.
different decision and I wouldn't be sat in front of you today. So
Correct. Yeah, all the decisions that have been made have led to this point, and then will lead off from that. I think there's always those things, isn't there, where you say, if I hadn't made that decision, then it would have been this. You don't know that. I don't believe there are any bad decisions.
No.
Some of them can be fatal, which is kind of a bad decision. But who's to say that's the case, right? You just simply don't know. All the decisions you made are all the decisions that you were meant to make, which brought you to this point today. And so you are exactly where you should be based upon the decisions you've made
Yeah.
in your life. And that's for everybody. The question is what decision, where do you want to go and what decisions do you need to make going forward?
Yeah, definitely. I say all of the time, like, you have to, I think, again, like, leading to, like, the success thing, if you have an unshakable belief that you're kind of paving your own path, which we are when we make decisions, with that unshakable belief, you'll be happy and you will be successful. Do you know what I mean? Even when things don't kind of go my way, I'm like, I'll just trust the stars are aligning on this one. I'll trust I did do the right thing, skewed us a little bit, and I'll pull it back onto path, because you can't live regretting too much, can you?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's very true. But I think that's where people finding you out in order to help them, because they're looking for help.
Yeah.
And that you're going to provide some motivation within the business, aren't you? You're going to say, listen, I'm going to be here at 9 o'clock. You need to be here. That's motivation number one.
Yeah.
Number two is you're setting them realistic goals, but they're wanting that help. A lot of people who are probably looking for that help will do the same mistake time and time again. They might join up for a gym or join up for something and then not bother going. And the reason being is because, I've paid for the gym now. Job done. No, you've actually got to go.
Yeah. And I think, like I said briefly in the beginning, something I have found, which from a psychological standpoint is really interesting, is we're very, very quick to kind of break promises to ourselves and let ourselves down. And I include myself in that. Like, I'm not exempt from doing this. But when you put a third party into the equation, I'll have my girls come on the gym floor and be like, I wasn't going to come today, but I didn't want to let you down. And I'm like, well, ultimately that would have been letting you down. Do you know what I mean? But they're there because they're like, don't want to cancel on Laura, but they're getting the benefits of having me there, type of thing. Whereas where they just left to their own devices to go to like a different gym, they probably wouldn't have gone. They're okay, but letting themselves down, they don't want to let someone else down. And I'm like, I don't know why I like that, but
well, but I think that's that thing. I think it is. I think there's a tribal thing about people. We're not meant to be on our own.
No.
So therefore, by providing a service to somebody else, in other words, turning up on time, that's battle number 2 done. Number 1, I had to get up in the morning. Great, good. I'm going to the gym. Great, I'm meeting Laura. Super.
Yeah.
Number 2, I've arrived.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Right, let's go. Whereas I think there is a psychology with the £20 a month gym membership, which says it's not really cost me anything. Do it if I go or I don't go.
Yeah.
It doesn't really fundamentally make much difference.
No, it doesn't. And I do think some people just need the extra guidance, like the little arm around the shoulder, you know, the help that I or like other fitness professionals can give. And you see a couple of things kind of now on Instagram where it's like, on the floor personal training's dead. I'm like, it never will be, because people will always need that in-person contact. It might fluctuate over time depending on what's going on in the economy and things like that, but I don't think that one-to-one coaching will ever be, you know, dead, so to speak, because people always need that. The whole arm around the shoulder thing, the support. It's more than just a gym session, I think, when you see someone face to face. So, and that's why I enjoy what I do. I don't love the online stuff as much because it's not as personal. And I'm like, it's meant to be personal training. Do you know what I mean? As much as the plan is personalised to them, the group of women who I've built over the years, they're my friends. I love seeing them. I don't feel like I'm in work. So, it's good for me too. I'm quite lucky in that respect,
Yeah, but like I say, it's about accessibility. I think that's what Ignite does, right?
Yeah.
I think that was what you were thinking of when you did it. Was
Oh yeah, definitely. And Ignite's different. You cannot be with a fitness professional, an athlete, every waking moment. Do you know what I mean? Outside of my boyfriend, who I plan everything very stringently for because we live together. Outside of that, you cannot be in touch with people that much. It's not possible. But what I do think with Ignite is these athletes are already a certain level of motivated to be athletes.
Yeah.
And so they maybe don't need the guidance the general population needs. And that's not me saying one's better than the other. Again, it's that thing of different paths. Someone might just come to the gym to keep fit, and that's my in-person client.
Yeah.
With Ignite, you are dealing with people who have a certain psyche, a certain mindset. They maybe don't actually need so much guidance. Don't get me wrong, some people need more guidance than others, and you have to kind of check in with them more frequently. But I like the diversity that it brings. I like how all of it comes together. Obviously, it's me who links it all, but I like the diversity of the client base that I've got, and what I do on the gym floor and what I do with Ignite, it exists in the same space, but it's very different, and that makes things really exciting for me.
Yeah. So what does a day in the life of a personal trainer look like then? So because you've got to motivate yourself.
Yeah, so especially now since moving, it's very hectic, because I thought I would reduce my working days to make the commuting easier, but the working hours didn't reduce. I just have less days to do them in. So I will leave at about 5:30 a.m, commute to Liverpool, work from 6:30 a.m. till 12. I'll log on to Ignite at 12. Then I'll go back onto the gym floor at 4 till about 7. And then obviously pre-injury, you've got to factor in there, on an average day, I'll train for at least 2 hours. So
Right.
you've got to throw that into the mix. So before getting injured, I was leaving the house at 5:30 and getting home after 9 p.m.
So on the gym floor, sorry, yeah, I've just suddenly thought about something, and I thought, yeah, that's what people don't see. You've got to get up like at 5 or 4:30, right?
5, I just roll out of bed.
Every single day.
Yeah.
And you've got to be there on point for
Yeah.
them. What does the gym floor look like then?
I think the part that's probably not spoken about with the gym floor stuff is when you say like, you've got to turn up, it's not just about like your physical body turning up. And most days that's not the problem. Like I get up early anyway. But it's on the days where if your like social battery's a little bit flat, it can't be. These people are paying for your time and paying for your time and generally coming in and like, you know, telling you all their problems while they train. And so you have to turn up every day. You owe it to them. They're paying for a service. But I think that's the side that people don't think about. Like that can be, especially when I'm fight training and dieting and I'm like this, oh no.
Yeah, your
like,
electrolytes are low, you're feeling,
like I'm so tired and starving, and you know, but you can't be like that when people come in, because they're paying for your time. You're very much a luxury service, and so I'm like, when they come in, I'm like, oh, dying inside. So obviously Ignite's great for that, I can sit there with a face like thunder typing plans and just smile when I go on the calls. It's obviously all hard. Like at the end of the day, as much as I try and plan and be in a routine and have everything working like clockwork, I'm just a person at the end of the day, and I get tired and stressed, and yeah, it's hard some days, but I wouldn't change it.
So how many people do you manage to see in the morning? Is it 2, 3? Is that kind of the way you would work?
My typical day, so on a full day, at the moment, I'll see 11 clients.
Wow.
Yeah. And then depending on who I've got fighting on the Ignite side of things, depends who I have to check in with.
Yeah.
I'll check in with some people every day, not because they can't be trusted if I don't do that, but just to monitor things with them. Other people I can leave for a little bit longer, but say for Dan, for an example, I'll grab Dan every day just to see what's going on. Do you know what I mean? Like, Dan does everything to the letter, but it's just to make sure everything's going right. So I'll have me 11 clients on the gym floor, check in with who I need to check in with on Ignite. Yeah. Every day looks different, to be honest, but it's very full.
So your training itself then, so you have to train around that. So that's in the evening, I guess, is it?
No, I'll train in the afternoon, do morning clients, go and do a one-to-one with my coach, go and do my S&C.
What's S&C mean for everybody?
Strength and conditioning. And then I'll do the Ignite stuff, eat my lunch while I'm doing that, go back onto the gym floor, do them clients, then go to the class in the evening. Yeah, so I try and do it that way around. I don't have time to train before work. It would be rushed, and I don't like rushing things.
Yeah.
So that's just the way that I have to do it.
Yeah. Do you have to prepare your nutrition?
Yes. Yeah, so on my long days, I'll make sure that I've got a breakfast, a lunch, pre-training snack. It just removes that decision fatigue in many ways, and generally on the go food, it's not going to hit me macros and probably more expensive. So I plan everything kind of to the letter. Even now at the moment, obviously I don't know when I'm going to be back fighting again, but I want to make sure that when I am fit and able, the focus isn't on having to lose all the weight that I've managed to put on while I was injured. So I'm keeping nutrition things quite tight at the minute.
That's the discipline that you try and get your clients to do anyway, isn't it? Because everybody knows that the second you don't prepare something and you end up in a spot, the day might not go as you planned.
No.
Though that's when you end up having a cheese and onion sandwich and a bag of crisps and a can of Fanta.
But I'm like, even when you make decisions like that, I'm like, the calories aren't the problem, but the choice was poor. Like, you probably didn't eat it and go, oh, yeah.
That was nice.
It was probably
It's
just
sitting so well in my
yeah,
tummy.
I just grabbed this in Tesco and like, oh,
Yeah,
it's a
why
bit
am I
of a bit of
hungry an
rubbish.
hour later?
Yeah. I like planning, but because I love food. So I'm like, I know if I've made it, I've got a really nice dinner to look forward to. I know if I had a Tesco meal deal, I would be mostly unsatisfied. I'd definitely overeat because you are starving an hour later. And I have a tendency to, if I don't enjoy a food, think I deserve more food to go enjoy. So, I don't know. I like prepping things like...
But that is definitely a theme. There isn't a coincidence.
No.
Everybody I've spoken to who are successful either in sport or in nutrition all say the same thing. You have to be consistent and you have to prepare.
Yeah.
Look ahead to the next day. What are the potential blockers that are going to deviate from me from achieving my goals?
Oh, yeah.
Write it down, prepare in advance, and then execute that plan. And even with food, it allows you to at least be ready. So in other words, you might have broken down on the road. Well, at least I've got my chicken and my rice with me or something.
Yeah, like, you never know what's kind of around the corner, but it is that old, like, kind of saying of, like, fail to prepare, prepare to fail. Like, you can't wing it. Don't get me wrong, like I say, general population stuff is different, but if you're general population and you want to see fat loss results, you generally can't wing it too much. If you want to see the results, if you don't, wing away.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Some people don't train for that reason. It's more a mental thing, that's fine. The nutrition side of things, specifically with athletes, I'm like, there's going to have to be a certain level of planning or you're going to make life really difficult for yourself further down the line. And then again, we're looking at, you know, performance taking the knock. And why would we chance that? You want to be getting into competing no matter what you do, thinking, I've done everything inside my power. This is the best version of me getting in to do this. And if you don't win, you weren't the best Thai boxer in the ring, for example, but you did everything to try and be. I would hate to get out of the ring and think, could have done more. Whether it was in the prep, in the fight, whatever. So that's why I'm like, take every box twice, highlight it for good measure. And I try and kind of put that into the Ignite clients as well. I'm like, let's not leave it all till last minute. Let's leave nothing to chance. Better to fix it now than to have to deal with it later.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But I say it's a very different mindset for the two businesses because people are with me for different reasons. But I like the contrast.
But I think that contrast is healthy.
Yeah, it is.
Sometimes you can end up being a little bit complacent, you know, if it's just constantly that one thing all the time, you know. So having that contrast, well, you've got to remember what the passion was at first. It was actually the PT at first.
Yeah.
Your sport, the psychology behind that, then the PT, that's what you were. And then you went, hang on a minute. Yeah, the people who I can help a lot more people here. Yeah. So I love the fact that you're supporting athletes.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Funnily enough, I had a skateboarder who's going to ride in the national championships in November. And he's part of the Liberalis team. And he was saying, Mark, you know, I'm on my own. I live in Bristol. I'm literally a skateboarder. I hardly eat anything. You know, I don't. It's those things. All some folk, and he's a phenomenal skateboarder. He's one of the best trick skateboarders I've ever seen. But you have to have everything that works together. You've got to get your sleep right. You've got to get your nutrition right, and from nutrition then you get the performance.
Yeah.
And so having that access, all athletes at different levels. If you're not eating properly, how are you ever going to be able to perform?
Oh, no, I know. And it does all tie in. And when I'll check in with people, we go over it all. I will look at everything that they're doing. I'll never make decisions on training, and that's for coaches. But I'll look at the training. I'll look at the sleep and recovery. I'll make suggestions. I'm like, I don't know, maybe there's a little bit too much going on there and we need to pull back and rest because that can affect weight loss and things like that. If obviously stress hormone's really high and inflammation markers are high and things like that. I'll never make the call on them things, but obviously you have to consider all of them things to get a more like holistic view of them as an individual. So it's super interesting. Like, I love what I do. in everything that I do. So I'm really lucky in that respect. But
So thinking about even with the athletes that you're looking after, but also in personal training, there's the stress hormone plays a massive role,
Yeah.
even if you're not training.
Yeah.
Cortisol in particular is horrendous for you. Inflammation can be caused by so many things. Some of it's environmental.
Yeah.
Some of it can be from nutrition, the fuel itself that you're putting in, and some of it's stress.
Yeah.
And again, if you're not getting that right, your stress hormone will always be up because you end up with that fight or flight syndrome.
Oh,
so that's where you end up with that sort of bloated tummy or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think that in itself, when you start going to the gym and start getting under control, it's actually the stress hormone that you're reducing.
Yeah. And I think people don't realise, like, you know, when you say, like, the saying, oh, you'll worry yourself sick, you actually will.
Yeah.
You actually will, because you get yourself into that constant fight or flight mode. It's not good for the central nervous system. You are going to see higher blood pressure and things like that. You're also going to see the stress hormone go up. It's not going to be great. It's not great for general population. What's actually interesting in athletes in particular is you can kick off a cortisol spike by overtraining, because training is stress on the body. Doesn't matter that you enjoy yourself when you're there. Like, it is stress on the body. Say for muscle building, for example, to break the muscle to build it stronger. If athletes are overtraining and maybe not getting adequate rest and things like that, they can see a spike in cortisol. We'll have fighters who appear to be ticking every box. Oh, but I'm retaining water. Oh, but like recovery's awful. Sleep's bad. And I'm like, your cortisol's through the roof. And maybe the most productive thing you could do at the moment is just to have a rest. Do you know what I mean? I'm not talking have a week off, but maybe we could just see what we can tone down. And so it's a double-edged sword. Sometimes, yeah, we can train and it definitely makes us healthier. But if we take it to the extreme, then it's definitely striking that right balance. And that's true for anyone. That's not just general population. It's not just athletes. Like, it's trying to find that right balance, because it's too much of it, it'll make you sick kind of thing.
I think some of the benefits of the service that you provide is, obviously you're sparky and which is a great number one. But the second thing is that you, as an individual, again, putting the athletes to a side for a second, but it is relevant to them as well, is that you have the overload of information, right?
Yeah.
So you might be going, oh, I'm supposed to be doing these 21 things. And then you end up not doing any of it.
Yeah.
You've got to get these capsules into you at this certain time. You need to be drinking hydrogen water constantly. You need to be doing 21 press-ups at 4 a.m. You've got to be and you become so overwhelmed that you forget about the basics.
Oh yeah, I say the basics all the time they're fundamental. Do you know what I mean? And it's very, very basic. You don't need to overcomplicate it. I think good nutrition, a good level of movement, sleep and staying hydrated will do you very well. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't need to be a fad. It doesn't need to be dressed up as anything else. It's usually dressed up as something else. It's usually very expensive and made purposefully confusing so that you feel like you need the product or the person. Do you know what I mean? Like, if I kind of try and make the concept of fat loss really confusing for you and you're like, oh my God, I can only do this if I'm with Laura because she makes it simple. She doesn't. It is simple. Do you know what I mean? You might need guidance. And I think a lot of the time the fitness industry does have too much of that in it. It's this product pushed on you and it's this service, and actually the simple things will always yield the best results. You just got to do them consistently over time.
So if someone was, again, consistency, there's a thread. So let's just take average person. Average person knows, oh, I've got I'm motivated. I really want to try and do something. I don't know what I'm doing. Or I'm not confident. I kind of know what I'm doing, but I'm not confident to do it. They come and see you. Is there 5, just on that point, is there 5 things you would say, look, just do these 5 things? Or is it a bit more complex than that?
I think it's different, maybe individual to individual, but I will always look at what they are doing now and how they can slightly improve on that. There's no point if you have someone, let's say, where I think, oh, you could be moving more. There's no point going, you need to do 10,000 steps a day when they might currently be averaging 3,000. that's a massive jump. I might just make the goal just manageable. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If someone is sat in an office all day and we're going to try and ask them to do 3 times more steps than they're already doing, they're probably never going to hit it, and they're probably not going to stick to it because they'll feel totally unmotivated by the goalpost that you've set them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think incremental change, keep it simple over time. That will look different for everyone, but if the task is too big, generally people will just give up on it before they get there, because motivation will run out and it's like, So I just always think that little incremental, I'd rather have lots of little wins and lead them to a big win than put the big win really far in the future.
Okay.
And it seems like out of reach all the time.
Because I was wondering about sleep, because sleep is obviously prime. It's like primal. It's like so important. But that's easy enough said. If you struggle, either you might wake up 21 times or something or whatever else like that. But in order to be able to get good quality sleep, probably you might find that you will do if you've got your nutrition right and you've started doing a little bit more movement and your body's sort of thanking you for it. The adrenal levels are probably down at that point. So therefore, actually, guess what? You're going to sleep better. It's not, right, I need to try and sleep. Because again, to your point, if you say, so you having 4 hours sleep? You need 8.
Yeah.
And you try and go to sleep and you wake up 4 hours later, you've failed.
Yeah. That's
not what you're saying. You're saying by doing 4 things, you'll probably sleep longer. Let's try and sleep longer.
That's it. And I think people underestimate sleep. Like, I won't budge. Sleep's one thing I won't budge on. And although I'm up really early, I literally treat myself like a child. If it's past 10 p.m, I'm like, oh my God, it's so late. Because I know it will affect tomorrow, and it just affects everything. And I make poor decisions when I'm tired. I'm not nice when I'm tired. It will affect training, food, everything. So for me, hold sleep very highly. I understand there's reasons why people can't sleep. I'm sure some people would love to have my sleeping schedule, but they can't, and it doesn't allow. But I think where sleep's an issue, you need to understand how important it is. And once you realise how important it is, then what are you going to do to try and get more of it? And like you say, it might just be an extra hour here and there. You have to treat yourself like a child. You know, like you were younger and your mum used to be like, oh,
it's bedtime
you'll
now.
have to go to bed early if you carry on. I think I wish someone would tell me to go to bed early now. You didn't realise how lucky you were.
Well, Lucy, who was on last week, she's the nutritional coach, and she was saying she sets her alarm on the phone at 9:30, like a child. Yeah. The alarm clock, go sleep.
To go to bed,
Yeah. So that's what she'll do, and then she says, if I don't hit that routine, guess what? I feel terrible the next day.
It's so far beyond me how people will stay up till say like midnight, and then they're up at like 6 and 7, and I'm like, I don't know how you function. Like, I don't know. Sleep's something I won't budge on.
Well, I used it as I can only refer to myself because I'm here, but certainly in my 30s, but probably even into my 40s, actually, to be fair, it was a badge of honour. I only need 4 hours sleep, and I would have 4 hours sleep. Kind of had the Elvis syndrome.
That's a nap.
Had the Elvis syndrome, which is I'll stay up until 1, get up at 4, 5. So it doesn't really matter. And I did that. I did that for about 12 years.
Oh my goodness.
But it was almost like I don't need it. And then, but eventually, I kind of go, God, I actually could have.
Catching up at me a little bit here. Yeah. I mean,
that was so I could fit everything in.
But I think
I had 2 young kids, and everything else, and then work as well. So I work before, work afterwards. There's loads of people who do that, and you probably don't realise, but you are walking around a bit in the zombified state sometimes, wondering, why is it I'm in the zombified state?
Definitely.
Well, guess what?
I think for you, obviously you said there was a lot of it in there, kids and all the rest of it. But I think younger generations who maybe don't have the responsibility of children and stuff, we've got into this habit where we wear burnout as a badge of honour. And it's like, oh, but I did all these things in my day. And I'm like, how much did you enjoy your life? Do you know what I mean? Like, you're not going to sit down with your grandkids and be like, oh, I only used to have 4 hours sleep, but, I got all of this done. You want to be able to sit and talk about how nice your life was and how the quality of your life was. And I do think now, like, there's loads of things on social media where it's like 5 a.m. club, and I'm like, and I can't say nothing because I get up. I'm unintentionally in the 5 a.m. club. It's not a choice. But they get up and they they want to do all this stuff before work, and that's great. Yeah, they're positive habits, but are you making the correct adaptations to your bedtime to allow you to get up at 5? Otherwise, the whole thing's counterproductive. You might be getting up and ice bathing at 5 a.m. Pointless if you went to bed at midnight.
Yeah. And then it's
Stress
probably
about
scrolled for half an hour.
Yeah. So I'm just like, yeah, I just do think we wear burnout as a badge of honour, and I want to talk because I do a lot, but I always prioritise rest and recovery. Like, I won't budge on the sleep.
Yeah.
That's all.
I think that's a great discipline for everybody. It is important.
Oh, it is.
Just don't watch the TV then, or just whatever it is.
Stop scrolling on your phone.
We can make those life
Yeah.
adjustments. Got to decide what's important.
Everything's a trade-off.
How
isn't it?
important it is a trade-off. Exactly. We are in a different world now.
Yeah.
Social media didn't exist 12 years ago, really, did it?
No.
So we all have to accept it, but there is a price to pay if that's the lifestyle that you're choosing to go down. You will have brain fog. You probably have eye strain. You probably be dehydrated. I think what Lucy was saying was it's something like, if you've been looking at your phone, it takes at least 22 minutes for you to start thinking about something else.
Yeah.
So it stands to reason that when you've been looking at the blue screen, and you're then trying to go to sleep, your brain's going to be thinking about it for 22 minutes, even before it starts thinking about the getting into some sort of sleep
Rest.
cycle.
Yeah. And like I say, it's the same with everything, isn't it? Life is a trade-off of problems. Like, if I scroll on my phone, I'm going to go to bed later. I'll be tired, problem. If I don't scroll on my phone, I'm going to feel like I've missed out. And then I feel like that's a problem. But I say all of the time, if the cost of something is your overall health and well-being, then it's too expensive.
Yeah.
And that stands to reason in everything, I think. If you're kind of weighing it all up and it's a bit like, oh, it's a bit much, I'm like, well, that's a bit much for you. It's too expensive.
Yeah.
Would you, go out and buy something that was totally outside your means? I don't know, maybe you would be paid off at a later date, and it's the same thing.
Yeah, it's a price to pay.
Yeah.
So where are you on alcohol? In terms of...
I'm not drunk.
Yeah, is your alcohol...
It's vodka.
Yeah, I stuck it in. No, where are you in terms of alcohol for training?
In terms of... I don't drink. It's not a choice I made that was anything to do with my training, to be honest. By virtue of fighting, obviously I drank less. I was never a massive drinker anyway, but what I did find over time is... And I joke, but I also don't joke. It takes me like 3 to 5 business days to get over having a drink.
Right.
Physically and mentally. I used to find drink make me very anxious. Not in the moment. I'd have a ball. But then the next day, 2, 3, 4 days after, I would feel horrendous. Whether some of it is psychosomatic, I don't know. But I'd feel horrendous. So I made a decision to pretty much stop drinking. I don't really drink. I'll have like the odd cocktail. I think I drank on 2 occasions last year. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's me personally. When it comes to individuals and fighters, I never like anyone who takes a moral high ground. They're like, oh, I don't do this, so you shouldn't. Like, if you're outside camp and you want to go and have a drink with your mates, then do what you do to let off steam. Like, if you want to have a beer after you've just won a fight, like, whatever. Like, I when it comes to things like that, I don't think it's anyone's place to judge. Do I think fighters should drink inside of a fight camp? Absolutely not. Do I think that they should drink inside an 6 to 8 week window of fighting? Absolutely not. But again, it's that lifestyle thing. It's how much are you living it. Whether you like it or not, it does have an impact on your metabolism. It does have an impact on sleep schedule. Probably has an impact on your food decisions. All of that's probably going to have an impact on your performance. And so while I don't think fighters should have to be teetotal, I think inside that camp, that 6 to 8 week window, it's, in my opinion, it's a no. I personally wouldn't, nor would I advocate it. But outside of that, I'm like, just do what you do. Do you know what I mean? I don't think, everyone should be teetotal or whatever. It's just me personally, alcohol's just not my friend. It just doesn't, it's fine in the moment, but the days that come after, it's not worth it for me.
Well, it causes a couple of things, doesn't it? I think it is a depressive.
Yeah.
And of course, everybody's different, so it depends upon how you feel at the time, but you could be more depressed one day
Yeah.
rather than the next after a couple of beers.
Yeah.
It's weird the way it works. But I think you just touched on something where I think a lot of people who drink heavily eat at the wrong times as well, because it creates the craving.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're training and you're focusing, say you've got a client who's trying to do PT, or you've got a fighter who's a performance athlete, and they do have a beer or something with height, because it's the sugars, isn't it? You're going to start having bad eating habits, and that's probably why you put weight on.
Probably. I mean, I know myself, if I was to say go out with the girls, there's no way I'm going home without like cheesy chips or a McDonald's. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I might well drink gin and slimline all night, but there's nothing slimline about the food decisions made at the end of the night. And I know that, so I know if I'm going to go out drinking, it definitely needs to be very far away from any kind of fighting where the cost is less.
Well, there's no surprise why there's a kebab shop outside every taxi rank.
I'm less interested in the drink. I just want the kebab.
Yeah.
I'm just like, just keep me away from both of them.
Yeah.
But I guess everyone's different, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. But I think what we're trying to get to is that I think everybody knows that there is a series of habits that you can help yourself with, which is, even if you didn't get to the gym, is going to help your well-being.
Yeah, definitely. And like I say, when it comes to alcohol, for general population, of course, there's better decisions you can make. Of course, a gin and slimline's better than a glass of red wine or a beer, but it's how you behave once you've had it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm snacky. I'm like, okay, well, if there's the gin, where's the crisp and where's the this and that? And the gin, the 60-calorie gin's no longer the problem, but the feast I've treated myself to because I've had a gin or two is the problem.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people, like you say, kind of make the mistakes and fall off the wagon, so to speak, like with your weekends or whatever.
There's life to live. I mean, this is the thing. People have hard times sometimes at work, don't they? And they get back, or family is just nothing like having a nice glass of wine at the end of the day or something, isn't it? I think it's because it becomes habit forming, though, and then you wonder why you might be feeling a bit rough.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm a big advocate of, no matter who we're talking about, whether it is general population or athlete, there's got to be that work-life balance. And even when I have fighters on very strict diets, I'll try and give them something to look forward to. And no, food shouldn't be seen as a reward, but it releases dopamine in the brain, and whether we like it or not, it does activate the reward systems. And even when conditions are really strict, I'm like, how can I make them something that fits in these calories but makes them feel like they're having something that's a bit nicer? Because there's got to be like a work-life balance with everything that you do, otherwise it just becomes a slog and a chore.
Yeah.
No one enjoys that.
No one enjoys that, do they, at all?
Yeah.
So for your PT business, how can people get a hold of you?
Instagram, it is lauracannon.pt _. I don't know. There might be an underscore.
Kinda, yeah.
lauracannon.pt should find me.
We'll make sure we'll put it on the screen. We'll make sure that it's there anyway. Yeah, that was test number 1.
Yeah.
I've got it written down. What kind of?
Oh my god.
No. So that's for your PT. What about Ignite? So how do athletes who might be listening from different sports, who I think would benefit from your energy, your enthusiasm, the thought that you put behind it, I think they'd all benefit from you. How would they get a hold of you?
So that's at ignite.pn on Instagram, but in there's a little link, and they fill out some basic information, give me a bit of insight, and then we book a consultation call, which is generally where I get to know more about them, because, you know, training schedules look different, weight classes look different. Like, there's a lot we need to discuss before we can even look at putting their name into the app for a plan.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So we have to have a call about that.
Well, the reason why I think it's important is because I was talking about the skateboarder who's down in Bristol. There's 2 or 3 or 4 actually, and they're all on their own. Every single one are on their own, trying to make the choices. Got to self-fund to try and get to all the various championships and everything else. Yeah. They've got to try and get their nutrition right and the balance, you know, and it's difficult. I think the service that you're offering there for athletes like that, it's also going to provide that collegiate community element around it as well, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I like that, obviously, like I said at the beginning, I tend to have a couple of fighters from certain gyms, you know, each time. and they will share recipes and, you know, or they'll be like, oh, you know, any chance like we can make that work, and it's forming little communities. So from like gym to gym, it's nice because I always have a couple of them from gyms in Liverpool, you know, in Wigan, and it is a nice community feel to it. I do like that, and I hope that that's something I can kind of build on, you know, in the future. Potentially do like little events or something like that. Like I say, not set in stone where about them things yet, but I would really like to grow it in the future.
Yeah, well, you have to start from somewhere, and you have the vision over here.
Yeah.
And there are probably 6 steps we need to hit in order to be able to get there, you know. And if you don't hit it, then go again. There was there's something around the fact that you cannot give in to go and achieve that. If you give in, if you're not consistent and not committed, and you give in, it will not work with it. So you have to try and do that. But I just think if you look at everything that you're juggling, and you've also got yourself in your own sport that you're trying to get yourself fit and healthy for.
Yeah.
You know, I think the people you're helping and that is really local hero-y, because it's one of those things which is really motivating for people. Mm-hmm. You know, there you are on your own, effectively you're helping all of these people achieve their goals, whilst you're still battling to try and achieve your own as well. Yeah. That's definitely local hero-y.
Well, I feel privileged to be a local hero.
Yeah. And I think that probably brings us nicely to a close. I think what we'll do is we'll make sure that all of the links are available for everybody. I'd just like to thank you for your energy, for coming here, but helping folk is the real key. And you are a local hero.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
It's been lovely to talk to you.
Thank you.